Oh,
Winter, spring, summer, fall, seasons change, we still keep it together.
Hey Beverly Hills 90210 fans, are you ready to dive deep, episode by episode, storyline by storyline, character by character, as we break down the making of your favorite zip code, with your hosts, Charles Rosin.
did I say that? Yeah.
Harry
All this
Mullen.
heinous thing about the real person, and we're going, what? We're getting rid of this guy.
Pete Ferriero.
I'm feeling wonderful. Kathleen looks TV crush worthy.
Like so many special guests, and all your questions, live on the Beverly Hills 90210 show. Oh yeah. Everybody dance now.
Well, we are back again on the Beverly Hills 90210 show, and it's a beautiful day here in LA. Dianne, you just got here, right?
I just drove in, yeah.
To Southern California, you're not I figured you'd be talking to you in Louisiana, but no, you're here. All right.
No, I've been white knuckling it here. So yeah, I'm coming in to see friends, and there's this dock at Cedar Sinai that I want to see.
Oh, I hope that goes well. But great to see you. You don't look any worse for wear. I wouldn't know you drove. I thought you looked like maybe you drove in from the Valley, maybe, or the South Bay. Up from the South Bay. That's more like it, I think.
Yeah.
How is it by the beach?
I drove in from the Valley.
How is it by the beach, Chuck?
It's a little, it's a little windy, a little breezy, I should say. About 8 years ago, I started realizing that the summers that I remember from Berkeley in Northern California were now happening right here in SoCal, and it has just been that climate trend. So it's a little chillier, but a wetsuit will be on my body in the imminent future. Has to be.
Very nice.
Restless.
Head on.
And Drew, it's always good to see you, man. The fans will be excited to know Drew and I talked this week. He's going to try to help us with the California University shirt. So we're working on that behind the scenes for everybody. How's it all going with you?
Oh, things are going good. It's spring in the southeast. The roses are blooming, and every afternoon we have torrential downpours and thunderstorms and possible tornadoes.
Yeah.
Where are you, Drew?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh.
Okay. And Sarah, of course, Hearon from Us Weekly. How's all going in New Jersey?
Yeah, round out the weather report with a lot of rain and wind. Good stuff.
It's true. Well, it's the top. It's funny. Back in the day, it was like that old. It almost is something like you'd have from the play Our Town. With them sitting on the porch. How's the weather? And this now it's like the first order of business is get the weather out of the way.
Well, last year at this time, Chuck, you called me one time because we kept on asking, "How are you doing with COVID?" We asked everybody that was ever on the show. Now we went to baseball, and now the weather. So we're moving. We're moving on.
Right.
I feel like that's an improvement.
Hopefully never going back to those COVID questions.
Exactly. All right. Well, this is going to be a very exciting week because we're talking about the 2 episodes that end season 2. I think they're really, really important episodes for the show. So I want to start with you, Chuck. 90210 is blowing up. It's going great, and you're coming to the end of season 2. Talk to me about what your thoughts were in putting this. Brenda and Dylan, will start there, going to Mexico.
Well, the overriding thing that was happening around this time was that there was another show going on. That Darren and Mr. Spelling sold Melrose Place and used the artifice, I should say, of the era, the spinoff to cement the relationship between the 2 shows. So, for me, it was like getting, oh, there goes my left hand, just got cut off. Do we grow a new one? It's almost like, what are we going to do with the interim? And I remember, Steve and Jess and I, and to a lesser extent Karen, like, what now? Because Darren really was moving in that way. So it was sudden because we didn't know. But certainly because it was a spinoff, the Spelling Company wanted us to have input into what was going on with the actor, that they wanted us to make sure that we were happy with the actor. I think that was the overriding first order of business. And so Dianne, did you dressed Grant, right? You put his look together
I actually
to kind of
set up the look for Melrose Place as well.
You did the pilot of Melrose. You did that pretty much.
I did.
Great.
I don't know if you remember, but the Melrose cast requested me for their show. And
I didn't know. I only knew Daphne, but clearly, if they requested you, they were a smart cast. All they had to do was look what was going on our screens and would realize that.
Spelling. Well, I did what we originally did was we worked with the network with Grant to get his look for 90210. That leather jacket was a big deal to the network. And his look as well, the black t-shirt, the whole 9 yards. And so we got that down. Did I lose you guys?
Oh no, I
just put them on.
I just put the picture up.
That leather jacket was a
playing
big
with
deal.
technology.
And I'll tell you how we aged that jacket was I tied it to the back of my son's toy Jeep, and they rode around the neighborhood.
Wow.
To get it just right.
Wow.
Wait, in looking at
we did a big photo shoot for Melrose Place and all of that. Yes.
And that was a good one.
The cast requested me, but Mr. Spelling said I had to make a choice, that I couldn't do both. So I stayed with 90210.
Right.
Thank you. I never knew it was an either or.
Right.
I didn't even know what the conversation was, in that regard. Yeah. But certainly, in looking at this episode, the Mexican standoff when he's first introduced, what was interesting to me in the look that you put together for Grant was that how it was different than what Dylan was wearing, even though Dylan sometimes could be associated with the same getup if that's what he was wearing that day. He could have easily been wearing
there
a
was
variation
a whole
of that.
James Dean thing happening there.
Right.
Yeah.
But Grant was more willing to embrace that, whereas that was something that the actor Luke didn't really want to go down that road.
Right. But we stayed with Luke. We stayed in the time period of James Dean. We used all vintage shirts. He rarely wore a contemporary shirt. So those were all vintage.
Oh, interesting.
That Luke wore.
Chuck, when we're talking about Melrose Place, do you remember when you first heard that was happening and what your reactions were to this? I mean, you just said, you were losing your left hand. I'm just curious though, because it's a big deal. It's like having a team. You all go on the field and now we're going to divide the team into two teams and,
I have to say, and I knew this, and this probably was the first time that I had been confronted with that kind of situation. And it was something that stayed a guidepost for the next 15 years as I continued to be in the business, which was people are going to do for their career what they think is best for their career. And who am I to say that's not what you should be doing?
Fair point.
And I got to adjust because you're doing what you think is best for your career. And only once or twice did I actually follow up with, even though it's the stupidest decision you'll ever make. Or a really good one I once said to a network executive who didn't appreciate it when it got down to two writers and chose the other writer. I just said, catch me on the rewrite. That was anyway, so it didn't. And besides, there was no time. We had to get Mr. Pony done. We had to do things to do on a rainy day, and we had to do these two. And that's what was going on in that period of time.
I totally get where you're going. But I'm curious because the crossover's happening, and they're gonna be taking some of the characters. You know, Kelly's gonna go over there. Jenny's gonna do a bunch. Jake's gonna be coming here. She's gonna be going there. So it's important that you sort of maintain what those characters are gonna look like on the other show, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, well, of course, but you know, it's an interesting thing here. I'm going back to Halloween, which was episode number 13 when she dressed. You remember that one, Diane? I'm sure.
I remember that one for
her frisky outfit. And then some. So that was 13. In episode 21, she had a real big scene to do relative with Andrea, having to do when she goes back and everybody's talking about it and relives compares their own sexual experiences at that point. That was 21. And you go all the way here to Mexican Standoff, all the ones intervene. She's got a nice fun role to go through in things to do on a rainy day, but we never really gave her a substantive hello, it's shining on you in a while. I just went through it. I mean, it was mostly Brenda and Dylan. Right. You know, in the group Cardio Funk, Baby Makes Five, you know, whatever it would be in terms of the romance stories. So, you know, I remember at the time hearing that she was going to do that, and I really wasn't. Look, we were pretty solid by this point, we felt, and even losing Darren and knowing that we were going into season 3 in real time, you know, we still had a lot of high confidence. We were going to have a really good season. We were going to have, you know, the beach again, and then getting Paris into the mix. So, you know, figuring that out really pretty quickly how to do that. So, you know, it wasn't that big of a threat to see Jenny going over there to beat Kelly, but I could see how it could have been.
Sure.
You know, if like given whatever, you know, drama. And if you really want to know about drama, I mean, Diana's the one to talk to. She had to do. I was close to her. I didn't know what was going on in the clothes racks. I would hear, but she knows. But the thing is, but also, it's very interesting because here she was having this profile in Mexican Standoff, and you dressed her so beautifully. I think it's some of my favorite outfits I've seen her have was in Mexican Standoff. When she was in, they go down to Mexico.
I designed and made a lot of those for her. Those were off a lot more. Oh, are you talking about Jenny?
I'm talking about Jenny, really, and I'm not talking about this one, Pete. I'm talking about the dark ones.
This one?
That one. I feel like it's 450 years ago, and I'm pointing to Marlo Thomas, going, "That girl," you know. But
because I finally got Jenny out of those floral dresses.
So, what was that dress? Did you design that one, or did you find that? Do you remember?
That little bottom was actually a beach cover-up that we paired with an Indian necklace and that black tank.
It worked. She was very appealing and clearly from a character point of view. I don't know how you feel about this, Sarah, but you know, she you know, like pulled herself in. She wanted to flirt. She was an unhappy period of time for her, and this guy's flirting with her, and why not? I'll be crazy. Hey, she would have been just about anything. She would have gone to Mexico if he would have invited her. You know, I mean, she was really in that frame of mind, I think.
Yeah, and I think her clothes also reflect that. Like, she looks so like badass and like sexy, and she always was. Like, we remember Kelly like that. I feel like for those like late high school years, and then she gets kind of conservative again as she gets older.
Very conservative.
Yeah, but I thought her and Kelly and Jake always had like a weird, like nice little chemistry and unresolved thing that I know was just to launch Melrose Place, but it actually was there, even though it's kind of creepy that he's older.
So
it is very creepy that he's older. I agree with you, but there is a strong chemistry. Was there? I mean, I don't know, Chuck, how much you're involved with the Melrose thing. Well, you have to be because he's coming to the show and all this. But the whole
I'm involved. I'll tell you how I'm involved. Mr. Spelling said to me, This is true story. So it is what it is. Mr. Spelling said to me that he wanted me to share in the profits of Melrose because I'm giving something up. And he said to me, and I don't know if you guys have ever, if anyone's ever in a profit world in this silly world back in the 90s, and I'm sure it's even worse now, if somebody says you're getting the net, run for the hills. So I am involved because I get a statement every year saying how much in debt the show is and that it's never made a dime. Meanwhile, I am getting a profit from 90210, and to compare the two, what one is, but the other one's still in debt. So all you would-be moguls out there, do not take the net. Adjusted gross don't work otherwise.
All right.
Good old business course there.
Business 101 there for you. Great stuff, though. I'm just, I actually now forgot where I was going with that from that information.
But no, I had nothing to do with anything of it. I went to see my relationship with the show as I once Beverly. You may remember this, Drew. I don't think you would have been necessarily on this group. It was the Jim Weatherall thing that there was a softball game between the crew of 90210 and the crew of Melrose Place.
Yep.
And we were winning the whole game and lost in the last inning. Basically how the Dodgers are playing this year so far. Speaking of baseball, but that was it. And then I didn't know Daphne Zanuga. So when she came in, she's a very nice person, and I did always enjoy her conversations with her. Otherwise, I sat once at a table with Heather Locklear at the Golden Globes when she was nominated and Jason was nominated, and Mr. Spelling didn't want to go and gave me the 2 tickets. That's it. I never watched an episode. I know they got bad backlash for burning books. They burned some books. The writer, Andrew, nice guy. Andrew Shue.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Nice
yes,
guy.
That's right. Yes.
And the soccer player. And, kudos to him. But he burned books. So that was kind of weird.
He burns the script that he wrote or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, put it in the drawer. You never know, That's business number two.
I think where I was going was Sarah brought up the point of the older relationship thing, but you have to address that because in the world of 90210, Kelly is a certain age and Jake is.
How old was he? How old do you think he was?
I mean, the Melrose Place kids weren't in college or anything; they were just like living and having jobs. Yeah. He was probably like 23.
Sounds good to me. I would have gone even up to 25, but I prefer given what the conversation is going, I prefer 23 to 25.
Right.
And so again, it's a different. This was the 90s, so it wasn't the 70s.
Right.
But it wasn't. It still was. I mean, she's 17. If a guy who's a little more in control of his whole karma would hear that, who would be 23, maybe would say, nah, not me. But it isn't such a horrible transgression. But I understand 18 is the year thing, but it's sometimes, in that situation, I don't know. It did, and given who she was too, and we knew her, and just how flirty she was. I want to ask you, did they have sex in Melrose? Was it implied that they did?
No.
I feel like she was just on a couple episodes in the beginning, and if she was like chasing him, and he was like, "No, Kelly, you're too young," and then she went back to Beverly Hills.
He did. They ran a setup on her.
So then what? So this is
she became like obsessed with him.
Yeah, it was really bizarre to see how obsessed the Kelly Taylor character was with Jake, because Kelly really wasn't like that on 90210 at all. So it was a little bizarre to see her go full throttle that way
because she was feeling really badly. She didn't have anything. She'd been alone. It's been a while. Mother's getting married, David. So all of these kind of feelings. So something I never even thought of until you made me look at these episodes again, Pete, is that so when we start our summer episodes, she's on the rebound from Jake. And
That's
so
right.
She's pursuing Dylan on the rebound.
They're both sad.
that was a key piece for me too, because I have never really dove too deep into Melrose, and so watching that, it gave more clarity to what was going on with Kelly at the time of this whole at the time of that whole thing with.
So maybe Team Brenda gets like a lot of points now for that.
Maybe.
Stir up that Hornets nest again, huh?
All right. Speaking of Team Brenda, we're going to Mexico. Let's talk to Drew about this. Well, Chuck, you never thought you were going to Mexico, right? So
we knew we were going to Malibu when we, in our 5th season, Dianne, we went to Cabo. Duke Vincent had a friend at the big nice hotel down there, and they got to be they made a movie on the 90210 tab. It was fun. Right? I think Larry we were in Malibu for this one.
Larry was almost in a plane crash with Tim. Okay. All right, but in Duke Vincent's plane, but in this time you knew you weren't going. So for Drew, you guys get told you're gonna have to create Mexico in some ways, right? So what is that process like for you?
Well, in those days, that's pre-internet, so you couldn't just go to a computer and say, "Give me pictures of Mexico." You had to go to the library, or so sometimes we went to the Warner Research Collection at the Burbank Public Library, where you'd call and say, "I need pictures on Mexico," and they'd pull out like 4 feet of photographs from all this research from 100 years, and then you go look through them and make copies and take whatever you want. You paid for their time. But interestingly enough, it worked out perfectly. I had a college buddy who left school, joined the Marines, went to Gulf War I. He got out of the Marines the very same weekend that I needed to go take pictures in Mexico. So I went to Pendleton and picked him up, and we spent the weekend driving through Mexico. So I actually went to Mexico to take pictures and figure out what it was we were doing. So we drove down through Tecate and drove through Mexico to Ensenada from there. And
so did you take those shots? Was that your camera, your video that got the guys who the trinkets walking through the?
No. I think that was just some stock that they picked up.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, it looked like stock.
Pictures of all that stuff, on the way back. So I mean, I wish I still had them, because I had 20 folders full of photographs of restaurants and people on the beach, and little trinket stands and phone booths and. Like the thing that
you do have a telephono booth, so we got that.
Exactly. Well, and it's funny you mentioned California University. So I had to make that telephono logo from a photograph that was kind of like at an angle, out of focus, over somebody's shoulder, and that was my memory looking at the episode, going, "Oh my God, I remember drawing all those letters."
What about for you, Dianne, putting some of the outfits together for Mexico? I mean, Dylan, we see Dylan like in this picture. He's wearing this crazy Hawaiian shirt. He's on vacation. What do you remember about that?
Well, most of my memory goes to Shannon, because we made clothes. Those were designed and made, a lot of those for Shannon. But you really think that's a Hawaiian shirt? It looked more palm to me.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, okay, fair enough. It's palm. It's palm. I'll give you it. Yes.
It didn't look Hawaiian to me. It looked festive.
It's festive.
So, and it also fit into the color scheme. So, I'm all about color. So,
yes.
Yeah, it was great. It was fun. What I tried to do with that Mexico theme, though, was when we were at the beach and back from Mexico, I used the Mexican poncho on Dylan, the hooded. It was, I believe, cream with black printing on it. So I tried to keep the Mexico thing going, because he went down there to surf all the time. I felt like that was established.
Yes.
And Drew, I noticed that the little hotel that they went to, the little motel, looked so great.
That was a set. I totally forgot all about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was.
Well, that's how we had to do it. You could not. I mean, we got down the road a little bit, and we could show a tight angle of them. On the beach. All of us did notice in the watch along that first time, though, you see a wave, it was like post-production must have forgot we needed a shot or something, because it just doesn't look. It looks like, oh, we're Malibu. Oh no, we're not. There's a chicken. You know, it wasn't the right shot at all. But you had to do that with the set. So it was beautiful. The motel and the courtyard dancing restaurant, which looks like any restaurant in Cabo or Encinitas, whatever it would be. It's very authentic, both of them.
Yeah.
I want to show a couple of the Jim Walsh blowout scenes here in a second. But one of the things that's happening too is we're building to Jackie and Mel's wedding. And so I went out and asked Mel to join us. And
Hey,
man.
Matthew.
Hello.
That's right, Matthew Lawrence. Good to see you again.
It's been a long time, Peter.
Yeah, we're back to we like
couple weeks. Yeah,
we got Kentucky, although Louisiana mostly, right? That's where you mostly are, right, Diane? And North Carolina. And New Jersey.
that's right.
We're all over the coast, all over the place, I should say.
yeah.
Matthew, obviously you must remember a little bit of doing this wedding stuff with Anne. We've talked about that here before. What is your thoughts on that? The couple of episodes where you guys are getting married, Diane's got you in this incredible white suit and all this. What do you remember about it?
You know, the funny thing is, and we've talked about this when I've been honored enough to join you guys. That picture of all the still shots from 90210 from 9 years, that picture at the wedding of Jackie and I standing next to each other, people see the show and they pause it and they take a screenshot and text it to me all the time. And it's always that picture.
Right.
It's unbelievable. Looking back at it now, I mean, you know, could you dress me in that again? I don't think so.
It's funny. That wedding got so much attention. I was buried with letters from that wedding. Where did you get this? Where did you get that? Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. That's amazing.
This is an alternate take. I did the kiss, but I went the alternate take. But really good stuff. Do you remember putting that stuff together, Diane?
Well, the bridesmaids' dresses were designed and manufactured for the girls, and those definitely received the most attention.
I can't think why would they.
I got so much fan mail from that. It was crazy. Wow. But I have a little story for you about those bridesmaids' dresses.
Go for it.
When we broke for lunch, we could not afford, as Chuck knows, to do doubles. Our budget was very limited. So we broke for lunch, and I ran down to the fabric store to get what I needed. I drove back up to the house, and the girls were playing water balloon catch in their dresses.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my God.
What was it? Then on the back, and in the background is Lou Reed singing "Take a Walk on the Wild Side." What was it?
I was horrified. So I walked over to them and said, "Girls, what are we doing?" We're playing water balloons. I went, "Not anymore." Oh, that was so crazy. But that wedding was so much fun. I had a ball on that episode. I loved it.
Well, I got a story that about one of the actors in that wedding scene. I think Matthew, you might really like it. I don't know if is that the only time you ever worked with Louis Arquette, or did you ever cross at another point?
That was the only time, I think, that we were.
So you got to go flashback, whether you're 1976 and I have just moved to Los Angeles, And Brad Gross, who was our first AD and directed episodes, and unfortunately couldn't join us today because he actually directed the Mexican Standoff portion of the two, gets me to be a PA for an IBM industrial film. It's a 2-week shoot. It's my first job in coming to LA after graduate school. And here I am, and I'm running around and going to Canter's Deli and doing whatever else. And the actors are pretty uniformly horrible to me, except for Louis Arquette. He's wonderful. And one of them is a guy from from Firesign Theater, one of my idols, Phil Proctor, and he did not want to talk to me at all. No Firesign Theater chat. So I'm just doing myself. But Louis was wonderful. So at the rent party, I say, Louis, why were you so nice to me? And he says, it was really nice. I appreciate it. Not knowing that he had famous family, that he was Charlie Weaver's son, all this real legacy and lineage. And he says, well, someday you may be running a studio and you'll remember me. So in 1981, I'm doing a show called with Helen Shaver that with like 6 episodes goes off the air on this, and CBS. An actor fell out. I called him and he got into that one. Jessica Novak was the name of the very forgotten series. And then this was the second time I called him. Well, get Louis. He'll do it. Why do we need to have an audition? So the moral of this story, right, Matthew, be nice to the PAs.
Well, I think I told you this before about my very first job which was with Sidney Lumet.
I don't know. Wow.
Jerry, it was
Lightweight.
Prince. Yeah, lightweight.
Yeah, exactly.
And anyway, my very first day on a movie set for a movie called Prince of the City, when I got to we were shooting at a house on Long Island, and I got out there, I was very nervous. And Sidney said to me, we're not going to be ready for you for a couple hours. In that trailer, there's a big poker game going on. Go in there. It'll be fun. 6 a.m. And I went in, and it was all the Italian guys that were all the actors for Prince of the City. They were all in there, all these guys from Brooklyn and Jerry Orbach. And Jerry Orbach was, to every actor in New York, an icon.
Sure.
And I went in there, and he asked me my name and who are you playing and sit down. And he was really great. Anyway, when they finished, he started talking to me and asked me where I had studied and what I had done. I walked out of the trailer, and Sidney came up to me, and I said, Jerry Orbach, on top of being one of the best actors anywhere, is the nicest guy. And Sidney Lumet said to me, and I never forgot it, he said, you're going to have a great career. He said, the bigger you get, the nicer you are to people. Don't ever forget that. That's what Jerry was. He said the time to be a jerk is when you can't get a job and you have no money and you're sleeping on somebody's couch. When you're working and you have actual work, that's when just be nice to everybody. And that's Louis Arquette is a great example
of that. That's yeah. And I'm Prince of the City. I haven't seen it in a long time. Loved it. I know it was, because it came after Dog Day, people will go, oh, well, it's not Dog Day, but it was a terrific movie.
Yeah, it was great. I was very lucky.
This was an awesome wedding. I'm curious for Drew. Somebody's asking about, shooting in Altadena and in the Walsh house or whatever, the people's house, that backyard. What was that like for you? And how were the neighbors on this? That was actually in Altadena, right? That the wedding.
Yeah, it was actually at the house in the backyard. Yeah. Working at the house was always interesting, because there was a guy who owned the house, and he seemed to know when we were going to come do something, like we needed to shoot in the front yard. So he got a bulldozer and pushed boulders across the front yard and ruined the lawn. And we had to paint it, and we had to put sod down. And so every time something happened, we'd go out there, and like there's a great shot looking back at the house, and you see the awning that we built on the back of the house, like covering the patio. And it had to be, every piece had to unsnap and take apart because he didn't want it to be there all the time. So we'd leave and he would wad it up and throw it around the corner. And it would be filthy and we'd have to remember to go do that. So there was always something going on there. But, the place, the neighborhood was lovely. And, the only thing we ever ran into there was at, 7:30 in the morning, somebody with their lawnmower and their blower 2 blocks away, and the location managers were running over to grease them to get them to go back in the house. Honestly, the only thing that ever happened, and I still can't believe I said this at the time, there was a brush fire in Altadena, and it was getting pretty close to the neighborhood. And there was a lot of consternation in the office about what are we going to do. And I said, let's get a second unit, because if it goes up in flames, we're going to need the footage.
That's why. That's why it's Professor Kinney. That's why. Exactly.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's good. How about for you, Dianne? I'm curious. Just working with Shannon, and we were talking a little bit about that and coming up with some of the outfits and whatnot. Is there any of the outfits in Mexico or whatever that stand out to you, or in these couple of episodes that you really, because you said you made them all, was there anything specific that you liked that you made, or that was a story of interest? Yeah.
You're asking me if I liked my designs.
I love all my children. All my children. I love each and every one.
Is there one that stands out to you that was a story?
That's a better way.
Yeah.
Well, whenever I think of that episode, it was all about the bridesmaids' dresses. But the Mexico thing, I just wanted to keep it real and festive. That was pretty much it. The girls were always a little bit overdressed. But, there was a fine line. The network always wanted the Walshes to have some reflection of the Midwest and not totally immersed into Beverly Hills. But by that time, it was really tough to hold Shannon back because when you're popular and the fans are looking at you, you want to be hot. You want to be gorgeous. So that was a perfect opportunity to break her out of the Walshes and put her into California. So I just, with the striped shirts and the multi-layered white top with the baby blue pants. Now that's at school. That's a totally different thing than the vacation.
Here's some stuff. This is when she's leaving, right? This is her here.
That's the outfit I'm talking about. You see the little multi-layered top and the pants. Wanted to just give her a more updated look for that. A little bit older look, since she was going away with Dylan for the weekend.
Being a rebel.
Huh?
Being a rebel. This is Rebel Brenda.
Yes.
Rebel Brenda. Well, I love Shannon. She was my, I adore her. I loved working with her. She was fearless. She came up with great ideas on her own. And we worked together well. So it's easy to design for someone that's open-minded and has that nice thin, model body. She
kind of like me.
Always.
Oh yeah, ripped.
What did you say?
Like me.
You.
Yeah, open-minded and thin model kind of body. I can't
Exactly.
I mean, speaking of thin model, though, can we talk about the Denise Richards of it all? Because I totally forgot that she was there.
Denise Richards was at this wedding. Yes. Do you remember that, Chuck?
Yes.
No.
Very young
He's
Denise
an extra?
Richards. She flirted with Steve for like a second.
Yeah.
Had like
That's one of the
one
two
or
that
two lines.
of girls at the wedding. One of them is Denise Richards.
Denise Richards.
Yeah.
I was in when I did a show for Showtime in Toronto in 2001. I was in an episode. I was in an elevator with her, And I had seen Wild Things 3 days before. It was really hard. I'm looking up at the thing. I don't want to just keep going. Anyway, I didn't know she was on the show.
Yeah, she's there.
Did you remember that, Dianne? Do you remember having any interactions with the young Denise Richards?
Yeah, I didn't know who she was at the time.
I don't think anyone did.
Of course not.
Yeah, she was lovely, gorgeous, of course. But
Right.
no, I just, I fit her in what I thought was appropriate for the wedding, and then that was it. Just wanted to make sure it was sexy and had a little color to it and that sort of thing. But no, I don't have a strong memory of Denise.
And for Matthew,
I remember how
I did notice, though you didn't mention anything, we did the watch it. Those girls, both very cute girls. Yeah, who were there. I wondered who they were friends with, and I had no idea though. It was.
Yeah.
But for Matthew, the show is obviously really huge, and they're ending the season with your wedding. What was that experience like for you? Being, kind of the show now being this huge juggernaut at the time.
It was mind-boggling, to be honest. I remember shooting at the house, when we were in our house, and coming out of there. I don't remember where we were, where the house was, but I remember coming out of any of those houses where we would shoot, and hundreds of people being out there on the street when we would be finished with a scene and we would walk outside, and entire neighborhoods would be out there. The whole thing. And by that point, the wedding, for me, that wedding was awesome because I wasn't married. I didn't have a family. I was just being out there. And so I could finally call my mom and say, Mom, I got married. You'll be really happy and quit bugging me. So that was a good thing for me. And we've talked when Ann and I were on the show how much I loved her. And but the show itself was at that time had gotten to be so big that, especially for those of us who are a little older than the kids, and we would just stand back and watch what was going on and everything that was happening to them, knowing that we were involved, obviously, in all of this, but kind of like the wedding. I mean, when, Ann and I would stand there and look around and talk about what was the evolution of the show up to that point. And it was amazing. It was amazing.
A lot of really, really great stuff there. All right, Matthew, we're going to say goodbye. Go ahead. Do you have something for Matthew?
Well, I just thought maybe he'd want to hear this part before we say goodbye.
Yes, sure.
I've been thinking about the one of the reasons we did Mexican Standoff, which of course bleeds into Wedding Bells Blues, is because we're doing episodes that Hulu does not screen, does not stream, I should say, not screen.
Well, fair enough.
And it's because they don't do any that have live performance. So when these guys are singing feelings that I'm feeling, the guys, yes, and that's why they won't take it. Because that's live music. But unless we got to get Todd H to go back and maybe double check this, if this really is on, because if Wedding Bell Blues is in the Hulu collection, they sang Blue Moon and they sang Stand By Me,
Yeah.
So I don't understand it anymore. I thought I knew why, but I don't.
Well, then I also sent you a message too yesterday, looking at the plot thickens with the music replacement, because in the Melrose Place replacement musics, they're using some of the replacement music that they're using in the 90210 replacement music. So it was like generically picked out. Here we're going to a club.
So let's then say that they did. So the job they did was twice as bad.
Yeah.
You know? Recycled shit. It wasn't just shit. We recycle our own shit. So kind of like environmental movement, right? We're going to pollute the airwaves, but we're going to do it.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, I stop on that.
All right, Matthew, we're going to say goodbye to you. Thank you so much for joining.
Great to see you, man.
I just want to
Nice
say,
spring, Matthew.
Matthew, I was thinking about you this morning. Do you remember when I called you about what my son said?
I can't remember.
My
I can't
little boy
remember where I
walked
live,
into the
Dianne.
kitchen and said, "Mommy, where is my brother?" And I called you, and you
Oh.
referred me to the psychologist.
Oh,
Do you
my
recall
Lord.
that?
Oh,
Did
my
you forget?
Lord. Holy cow.
Do you remember?
I do remember.
You just remembered.
Oh, my
I
Lord.
want to thank you so much for that. You saved me.
Oh, bless your heart. Bless. See, this is why this is so great. So many years later. That makes me feel so good.
I was so excited when I saw you. I thank you,
Oh.
thank you, thank you.
Beautiful.
I love all you guys.
Love you too, Matthew. Good to see you as always.
Wait, going back to the music, can confirm because I watched the one illegally today and then one on Hulu. But also, did you see that Paula Cole has struck some deal with Sony, so they're getting the Dawson's Creek theme song back on Netflix?
Oh, that's great. That's good news. That is good news.
There you go.
There we go. Good news to hear. All right, Matthew, we will see you. Good
Bye.
to see you, buddy. Yeah.
Bye. I love
You just blew. I think you just blew Chuck's mind on that.
No, you didn't. Well, the fact is, I'm a profit participant of Dawson's too. So 3 cheers for Sony not being as big as cocksuckers as CBS. That's great.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of deal, but Paula Cole was said she was sick of getting DM, so they struck some deal.
I don't
So
know.
they're getting- I don't want to wait back.
This is when I get my annual check, so we'll see if it makes a bit of difference. Business lesson number 3.
Yeah. All right. Another thing that's happening in this we really have to talk about is this. Let's just show it.
Hey, Mr. Walsh. It's not that we didn't believe her, but we have these rules and regulations. Right. They're right in there.
Hello, Brenda.
Dad, hi.
Sir, I can explain.
Let's get out of here.
Dad, I'm sorry about all this.
Brenda, we'll talk about it later.
Well, it's always thank you StreamYard for that, for screwing up the how that played out. But he's not a happy camper, Jim Walsh, is he?
But this relationship has certainly gone too far. And I think it's time for the two of you to give it a break.
Yeah, well, maybe I just better go home.
Dylan.
It's okay, Brad. See you in school.
Mm.
Tomorrow.
Not happy.
I feel like the relationship between Jim and Dylan is so underrated. There's so many layers there, and there's daddy issues, but then there's heartfelt stuff. And I love that Dylan wanted Brenda to tell the truth so bad. I feel like that says so much about our bad boy, but we love him because he doesn't want her to lie to her dad. I love that.
I do agree with that. Writing some of this, Charles, we've got a lot of questions on the Patreon about that. Writing some of this stuff with Dylan and Jim Walsh. Do you remember putting some of that together?
Yeah, absolutely. I specialized in Jim Walsh conflicts with either Brandon or Dylan. Those are, it's interesting that you bring up the part about the father thing wrapped up there, because I think this is one of the only times it really gets articulated, and that you see that how his relationship and self-esteem changes when Jack McKay comes into his life, even though it takes him to the very edge with, child is the father is the man. Nonetheless, he is more, although you never would be resolved with a situation like that he's much stronger. I think at one point, maybe it was in season 5. I don't know exactly when he said whatever, the Nietzsche line, whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger. But that kind of became Dylan's mantra in a sense. But he's not strong here, not in this episode. He's not. And I think that how it goes into the zeitgeist of 90210 was that Luke had played this before once, twice, and this was like the third time around the block doing the same plot.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of him coming to me at the end of season 2, and then when you look at the wedding, you know, he's kind of alone. He's frustrated. I'm grabbing for a drink. I mean, he's on sorts, and he went, you know, you got to make it be more than that for me. You know, he if you know, look at that, I think he really did feel like an appendage. The person he cared about maybe most in the whole universe, in the 90210 universe, Jenny, was going over to Melrose, you know, and what did that mean in terms of us, and what did that mean for his character? And that's why he basically said back to me, I want to work with the blonde. It was, I want her back. Don't cut that loose. You know, I mean, so he was the one in the festivity of it. I don't know if because he was a total pro, that would not have come up on set. That wouldn't have come up. You know, I'm at this point, and if Luke was here, he'd be putting his spin on the memory of the same story, because it was a major turning point in getting to season 3 and what went beyond. There'd be no triangle without that conversation.
Yes, I want to welcome our friend, and a lot of people asked about that. So, Jason, I think that answers your question. I want to say hello to our friend Larry Mullen, who has been away, and he's dropping in to say hello. It's always good to see you, Larry.
Well, are we rolling, Bob? Yes. Hi, everybody. Hi, Sarah and Drew. And I don't think I know Dianne, but I certainly know her work, and it's wonderful.
It's by Larry. Carried the show for many years.
Yeah,
I want to ask you, Larry, while we have you here, you watched this show with us on the watch along for the first time, and
I did, and I had some. You know, look. First of all, it's always really wonderful to see these legendary seminal episodes. You know, and I kind of have to say I didn't get to see them. The train was moving so fast when I came in season 4. I couldn't indulge myself in every one, but I did read the recaps. But it was great to see, and especially because of their relationships. You know, I mean, the Dylan and Brenda stuff, the playfulness between them. And, you know, I mean, people expect me to talk about the kissing. I know they do, Pete. You know, don't try to pull it out of me. I'm going to tell you right now. But there's some really wonderful kissing there. There's like lingering lips. It's very convincing. And then there's also what the youth parlance for the time would call dry humping. And that
he means at the time, he's talking about the span from 1928 till
there's serious dry humping, and it was pretty shocking for the time. God bless Chuck for getting that through. I'm sure he had to fight a little bit to keep the cuts there, but it's great to see the playfulness between them. And then you get to also see the other relationship of Jake and Jenny, and it really kind of sets up, Jenny's flirtatious character, because, when I came in, maybe she always was the girl who had a little bit of a reputation and stuff. And so you see kind of good moments of that she's already really fallen for the guy. And I really like how they showed the guy off, and, he looked pretty damn good. I thought you could see this guy was a star. Which was nice to see, and then just the treatment of Jim, Jim and Brenda stuff, the way that was playing was really delightful, I thought, and set up a lot of good stuff. So it was really fun to say, well done, guys, well done, making the Malibu, the Mexico stuff. Looking at it now, it's not, it's okay. You got away with it. Didn't cost any more money. Chuck was concerned with the budget, I'm sure, but how was the? I know Chuck. Forgive me. I know you were upset with the establishing shot. It looks like Santa Monica Bay.
If you would have come on sooner, Larry, you would have actually heard.
I know. The other thing that bugged me was
eating a lobster. Is it lobster dinner tonight? Are you with friends?
Know what? It was swordfish dinner tonight. But tomorrow I'm going to be back in the lagoon harvesting quahogs to make my Clams Casino for another dinner. We've got some New York friends.
All right. Yeah.
So, but it was great stuff to watch. I really, it's always a privilege to watch that stuff and to hear the backstories on them.
Larry, you're wearing the awesome shirt. I survived.
Yeah, I did. It's black. It's fantastic quality. I would recommend it for all those, especially the slammers out there. You want to have this stuff, I think.
Yes. And next week we're going to cover. Chuck will not be with us, but we're going to go. We're driving into season 7 for an episode called Jobbed. right? Which has got the debut of Tom Miller and the ending of Mark Reese. So there is a lot to talk about. We're putting all that together.
And don't look for it on Hulu.
No, it's a non-Hulu episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm so glad to crash your party.
Thank you, Larry.
Carry on and
thank you, my man. It's always good to see you.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye, Chucky. Bye-bye, Drew, everybody.
See you later.
I hope this works, but our friend Caitlin, in Wedding Bell Blues, there is this great letter that Cindy Walsh sends to Dylan. So there was some outtakes of that, I guess. Hopefully this plays. Let's see.
Dear Dylan, I'm not upset with you for taking Brenda to Mexico. I'm just disappointed that you didn't ask me first. I've always thought you were attractive. That's inappropriate. Jim is totally overreacting, and if you just give him a little bit of time, he'll come around. That's not right either. Come on, Cindy. Be a supportive wife. Jim is totally in the right, and I am severely disappointed in you for taking our little girl to Mexico. Brandon, turn that music down, damn
it! I love it.
It's so funny.
It's
an interesting thing because, yes, it was very effective. And I remember being moved by the way that she did the voiceover on that letter. But it's an interesting thing when you think about it because, that is, and it maybe again factors into what Luke's in my conversation. That's a soap convention.
Mm-hmm.
The voiceover with the letter being written like that. It's a very soaped out. Steve and Jessica. Hi, Jess. If you're listening, miss you. Feel better.
Yeah.
But it's a soaped moment, and there was a different. This was really we're moving into a different TV show than those first two seasons, where it was still about self-contained episodes and the social drama. This is the shift here. This is it because that really is the convention. And the only thing, I do want two things about this episode real quick. I know we're getting near the end, so I just wanted to point out one thing, that there's that moment when Kelly comes out with Jake, and right before their first kiss, and she says, "So you may gonna leave without saying goodbye?" That whole scene, 3 times. That's where we find the perennial 90210 boom. Not only did once, not twice, but 3 times, right in that crucial scene. There it was. Go back to see it. You'll see the boom shots. 3 of them.
Drew, do you have a take on the boom being in so many of these shots? I mean, I don't know. It's not your world, but I'm curious.
It was, it wasn't. It was the framing, right? The framing that we used at the time to do it on Fox, I think, is different than the wider one. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I can't believe I looked at those frames and said, okay, and there was always booms everywhere. So I feel kind of, when I'm making fun of the production, I got the mirror on me, believe me, because I don't understand why there's so many booms.
Go ahead. What was that, Drew?
The old TV safe was smaller based on the CRT instead of the 16.9 resolution. So some of that is different over time. And so when when the idea was coming that we were having to capture things at a higher resolution, then we had all those boxes inside the mat, and they were going for TV safe because that was what was airing on the network, not just outside of that TV safe frame.
That was the irony too. Here was Fox with attitude, the cutting edge network, and I know it was for financial reasons, but nonetheless, they chose not to go ahead and get into the forefront of the new digital technology. They went backward. So we mixed in audio. We didn't even mix in stereo. And then sometimes in the bottom, you'll see mixed in stereo. It's mixed in audio. We may have had a stereo system. It was audio. It was
our friend Kristen McIsaac says the boom is the 9th main character. So
right. And a good one. Never asked for residuals. It's really great. It just shows up occasionally.
Also, Drew, people want to know more about putting the wedding set together and and dressing the set for a wedding. What is that process like? It seems like it's a very detailed.
It's like putting on a wedding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
because you still need all the, basically you have to set up for the wide shot. So basically you have to set up an entire wedding. And then, the hardest part, honestly, is just logistically, there's so many pieces that you have to deal with the crew moving around that you end up having to have so many extra bodies just to deal with resetting things all the time. I mean, it's a wonder that some of those more complicated things like that don't have more booms in them, frankly.
One more scene I want to show because I think this is just absolutely epic. It really reaches a whole other thing.
Dylan, I was just talking to Brenda. She told me how you're feeling. And I was beginning to realize that maybe I'd been a little unfair.
You don't have to apologize to me.
I let my temper get the better of me. I'm sorry for that. You know how we all feel about you, Dylan.
Thought I did. Thought there was some special thing going on between me and your family. So I trusted you. Like a father, man. Not just with my money, but with my feelings.
Well, Dylan, that trust is a two-way street. I mean, imagine how we feel.
I know how you feel! But at least when my dad was pissed at me, he would hit me. I could look at the bruises and know they'd go away. Come on, Jim! Take a shot! Let me know how you really feel. Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Now you need a drink, huh?
What I don't need is you telling me what to do.
Then I suggest you go home.
Yeah, you're damn straight I will. And another thing, I want your hands off my money. You got that?
I mean, just such an awesome scene. I thought it was worthy to show. What a great performer Luke Barry is, and James Eckhouse. Dianne, do you want to talk about Luke at all? I don't know that we've talked about. Have you had talk?
Sure. You mean in terms of the wedding?
Or just generally speaking, but sure, you can talk his work, what you saw out of him, and getting to know him and as a performer.
Well, he was a total professional, all the time. He was very easy to work with. Like I said before, we didn't do the James Dean thing on him, but kept him in the same period. This particular scene, you guys may not have noticed it, but I did. His clothes, and it was done on purpose, his clothes were kind of mismatched. In other words, he had on a double-breasted jacket, like he bought that at the thrift store. And the color of his clothes needed to reflect his mood.
Mm-hmm.
Drab, not festive at all, not up. When you're down, you don't go to your closet and pick something bright. So all of that is in keeping with his mood. And then with James, so that they would meld together, he basically had on his summer suit. He wasn't very fond of having the wedding at the house in the first place.
That's right. There's that. Yeah.
So he would not have decked himself out either. So it worked out pretty good in terms of that scene and the clothes being completely undistracting of anything other than what the actors were playing. That was
but yet really reinforcing the moods. The fact is that as the way that Dylan looked as opposed to the way that Jim looked looked great in his suit. It's a really nice suit. I don't think it was any disrespect that he didn't put on the white shirt or that it was an outdoor wedding in the afternoon. It was respectful.
Walsh's.
But Dylan at the same time was also a statement. The statement, I don't want to be here. Yeah.
My motivation for that scene was, there's an old costume saying, if you don't notice the clothes, then we've done a good job. So this is one of those scenes where you don't want the clothes to distract from the intensity of the scene. And that was my main motivation for that, was to let the actors be and let them do their thing and not have the clothes become part of any other attention but what the actors were playing. That was the main thing for me.
And for you, Chuck, you see that episode. It's ending, right? You see that big thing. I mean, you guys are off to the races at this point, right? Isn't this going to be the start of all things that are to come? Ratings are good, right? What's the reaction?
This was a very yes. In fact, the whole arc of season 2, where we started at the number 19, we ended up at the number 21.4. And the fact of the matter is, there was as we've said, there were other episodes that were more than we were at the end of the season. But that in May is our highest aggregate numbers were in November. More people watch TV in November because you're inside. It's colder. So we got, but everybody was very happy. And we were already, we were definitely to the races. Karen was already writing Paris. We were thinking we might. Jeff Melman directed this episode of Wedding Bell Blues, and he was turning around, getting ready to be the director in Paris before we were told, you're not going to Paris. But it did set us up for the summer. It set us up. Luke's whole mantra set us up for looking at it a different way and starting to take risks. And the whole issue that one of the things that Dianne brought out and talking about we didn't have doubles for the pieces of clothing. By season 3, that wasn't as much of an issue. We had more money in our television suits. We were already the argument about we can't do it. What are you talking about?
We were beggars.
We're here. That's right. We weren't beggars anymore. We may not have been. We may not have been able to. Always go out in the town. Go high rollers, but we weren't beggars anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Looking back, episodes I think they still hold up great. How about you guys? Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, so good. They go together so well. Such a huge contrast. You mentioned the clothes. It's so funny because we talked about that palm tree shirt that was like very bright for Dylan. Now we're in the suit. Love it. The only other thing I wrote down was I loved that the Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell reference stands up because they're still together as the celebrity brain of mine. When Jackie mentioned maybe we shouldn't get married, we should be like Goldie and Kurt. It's like probably very rare for all these references to hold up. That also held up, so that was fun.
That's very good. Yeah. Great work by all of you on this. Dianne, we always love having you on here. I can't explain it to you enough. People go nuts whenever we say you're coming on here because they're obsessed with what you created. You created a look that is bigger than 90210 that helped to define the 90s in a lot of ways. So just thank you for your time here.
Amazing what you remember too, by the way. Like your memory is amazing.
Episode the home phone, and it reminded me that we had beepers, right? And the beeper would go off on the freeway. You have to get off the freeway and make the call.
And it's also funny. Like nowadays, it just would have been a text. Cindy would have just texted Dylan, "What's going on? You coming to wedding? Question mark."
Brenda would have had to left her cell phone at Kelly's house so her mom can't track it because Find My Phone. Right. That's what parents do now. So she would have just left the phone there and her dad would just look like, oh, she's definitely at Kelly's, not in Mexico.
Right. And Cindy
I was trying to send this whole pager thing to my daughter the other day, and she was just, you guys had what? And I said, yeah.
Oh, I know.
The pager would go off and be 911. I got to call immediately. And you get off the freeway, and there were no payphones because they took them all out after crack. Yes. So you drove around for 20 minutes to find a phone that you could call the office. Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to wrap up, but
it's all getting cell phones.
There is one question that Lisa asked that's a little bit of a left field question, but it's a good one. She wants to know, hi, Lisa. It's always good to say hi to you. My question is, if you were going to write a show about our current generation of teenagers, what kind of resources would you use, if any? I think it's a really good question. Chuck, it's probably for you to start that answer.
Resources? Hi, Lisa. What do you mean by resources? I don't understand. I don't quite understand.
Well, I kind of took it as, what Drew was talking about earlier, not having some.
Well, I would have trouble. I mean, right when you're talking about it, because to do it today, because I'm not conversant with the technologies. It was easier in the early 90s to given the machine here or there, it was virtually the same technology as had been in the 80s or the late 70s. It wasn't all that much different. There was, payphones. And one of the things, of course, that the cell phone freed up and made it much easier to do shows, and I really saw that a few years later than 90210 and shows that I would do, is by having the cell phone, you weren't trapped to, I'm on the phone, it's a static shot, I've got to talk, the person could walk around. You could get a lot more going on in something like a phone call that you couldn't before. But I really wouldn't be very good at that part of it, how people treat each other, what reaction could be, what would be different, those kind of things. Yeah. But the resources I know that Brian Austin Green firmly believes that we would not have been the hit we were in a digital age, that this was before the internet and people were curious and we were the outlet. We were the ones that showed them things they hadn't seen pictures of or looks of. And if you have if everything is on, you can get to via Google, then it's. I was
going to say, and for Drew and Dianne, it's the Google, it's the internet references of how you're finding things that you like. For you, is that what you'd say it is, Drew?
Today, absolutely, yeah. But it's interesting, like trying to do this for that same sort of age group today. I mean, my daughter's 21 years old. Oh my God, they're so different. Social media and the internet has so changed the way that generation does things. That would be a really difficult thing to try to develop a narrative that involves that, because like my daughter likes watching YouTube videos. I'm not quite sure how you compete with some of that.
Yeah.
There's not as much personal interaction either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had trouble. By the way, after doing 90210, the fact that when in the network era we had all the attention of the world. It was very easy. It was ratings. It was TV Guide. It was the three. That's the world you were in, and when you had a hit like whatever that would be, and I know all those shows must have felt the same way. You kind of feel sometimes like you're the center of the universe.
Sure.
I don't think that many shows feel. They may know we have a hit, we have fans, we have this, we do this, but Game of Thrones, center of the universe. Well, that's not easy to be in this era.
For sure.
You really, because I think it's really difficult. So again,
there was a line in this show that I never caught when we were doing it. I guess I was just super busy doing two weddings. But it was when Jim said, and remember the time when we thought Brenda was pregnant? He was talking to, I was like, what? I don't remember that. So was there an episode where
I think she gets a pregnancy scare?
A line that I missed.
No, it was
no, we did that.
It was a milestone. She thought she was late. She missed her period. They found her Tampax. It set him off.
That's attractive.
Wait, but you mentioned two weddings. We didn't even talk about Brenda's fake wedding dress.
No, I don't mean that. I mean the pregnancy test. Sorry, guys.
I know what you meant. I knew what you meant.
Pregnancy test. But remember that, and that's why they broke up, and that's why REM gave us Losing My Religion and all that moment. That was all in the same frame.
I was so busy on this show.
You were a busy lady. Yes, you were.
I was just, who's where?
Sarah brought up this dream here that Brenda has of.
Look at how nice that tux
is. I'm just imagining all the Brenda Dylan fans are going bonkers right now. This was the end game right here for them. But and I get it, guys. So, but what about that having to do the second wedding dress and setup, Dianne?
Oh, it was fun. It's great. It was really great. And didn't Luke look great in that?
Yeah, that vest was beautiful.
We never really saw him put together, right?
Yeah.
And this
very
was
handsome.
it. So, and the hair, again, the hair.
Yeah, I get it.
Gorgeous.
Right.
And Shannon loved this gown. We were simpatico on this completely. She made it very easy to do. And I just love dressing Shannon. So I had a great time on it. I thought she looked beautiful and he looked great.
Very awesome. Good stuff. One more thing real quick. Andrea doesn't think she's invited.
And you know, once Kelly saw that hat, and it was like, oh, yeah, well, should we invited her or not?
Really funny.
Andrea needed to be a little, a little bit of a black sheep. She needed to be the odd man out. So
yeah, she looked cute.
Did.
Very cute.
Sure.
Yeah.
Chuck, one more. Maggie asks, this is a good one. For Charles, did you ever have a Jim and Brenda curfew conversation with any of your children?
I was. You should know that, and probably could guess, when the kids ever wanted to do something out of the ordinary, having to do curfew or wanting to go to Coachella when they're 14, they don't ask their mother, they ask their dad. They know where to go. You want to have after the cast party, the high school cast party, have the sleepover at the Rosin house? Sure, kids, come on over. I liked when I was in high school and junior high school, so I wanted my kids to have a good time too, and I think they did. They still talk to me.
There you go. Yeah.
Chuck, the evidence is you have a fish head for a daughter.
She's a fisheroo. I don't get it.
I know,
I think we're dead man, but I know you go. You're probably bi. You go both ways on that.
All right, guys, this has been a lot of fun. We look forward to seeing you both again next time. Chuck, I will see you on a Zoom after this. And that's it. Good night, everybody. We will be back next week for Jobs with Larry Mullen. Have a good one.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Nice to see you.
Bye. Good seeing you.